Welcome to the Daily Transfer Show. I'm your host Miles. I'm joined here as ever by Goal's chief correspondent Peter.
As ever, right here.
So we've got some exciting news. Finally it's happened. Finally Alexis Sanchez has joined Man United and Henrikh Mkhitaryan has joined Arsenal. It seems like we've been talking about it for an eternity at this point.
We have, yeah.
But it's finally done. So last night it was confirmed. It was a straight swap deal, so there was no money involved or anything like that. Sanchez said the chance to work with Mourinho was something I could not turn down.
Well, there you go, yeah. So it proves that even for the big players, Mourinho and Man United are still a massive draw.
Still there, yeah.
Now, we know there were complications. There was a hitch with Man City due to the agent demands going up right at the last minute, and that's ultimately what drove Sanchez into the arms of Pep's great rival, Jose Mourinho. But there's no doubt about it that he's not going to some second-rate team. He's not moving to an inferior league or anything like that. He's going to a serious club with serious ambitions, and I think it's too late for them to catch City this year, but the addition of Alexis Sanchez for next season will certainly stand them in good stead.
Yeah, it'll certainly be a boost for the season, where having a top player like him coming in, going straight into the first team essentially.
Into the first team, playing the Champions League. Rashford's been off form, he can relieve some of the pressure on him. It gives them a lot more options to play with up front, because Sanchez, he doesn't stick to any one position, he can play anywhere. So if they want to use Lukaku as sort of the static front man, then they can fit Sanchez anywhere they like around there. It's a huge coup for Man United to beat City. Kind of, they've been in the shadow of City, in terms of since Guardiola's gone in there. Yeah. So it really kind of reminds a lot of people who are the top dogs in Manchester, which people seem to have forgotten over the last while.
Alexis is obviously the big draw, the big talking point of this, but Mkhitaryan as well joining Arsenal.
Yeah, it's a great deal. I think he really will suit Wenger's style of play. He said last night that it was always a dream to play for Arsenal. Yeah. Robbie Keane style. I've always wanted to play here.
But he has talked before, hasn't he? I mean, it's not like...
Which I think Keane said when he moved to Kolkata earlier on this year.
Always wanted to join the Indian Super League, it's called.
Boyhood dream to live in Kolkata.
It'll be interesting to see if he can convince his mate Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, if he can...
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. I don't know if you saw the outtakes from...
where it was like, you're going to join me up here?
Yeah, so he's in front of a green... I'm losing my words, but he's in front of the green screen, and he's using that meme that was made famous in the Playboy Carty video, the Magnolia video, where he says, "Yo Pierre, you want to come out here?" And people can make it out that he's mouthing, "Yo Pierre, you want to come out here?"
Yeah, if you turn the volume right up, you can hear it.
Yeah, you can make it out. So that would suggest that maybe that it's close. That we might see. Well, it needs to be a better announcement, because in terms of the announcements, United absolutely wiped the floor with Arsenal yesterday. Alexis playing the piano.
For a corny intro, it was a very good corny intro.
Oh, it was beautiful. But Alexis can play the piano. People were wondering last week why he's following Richard Marks on Twitter. The right here waiting for you guy. Because I've seen clips of Alexis playing right here waiting for you.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I have, yeah. So maybe he follows him for that reason. But he can actually play the piano, and he's done that Glory, Glory Man United little piano tinkle.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
It's a beautiful way to introduce yourself at Man United. It'll be interesting to see what impact he can have on their season. So, online bookmaker Dabblebet had Man United's odds to finish second at 7-4. And they placed me with 7-4 before Alexis's move. Now they're evens. That was also helped.
To do what?
To finish second in the league.
They're going to finish second.
They're going to finish second. You don't reckon Chelsea?
No.
No.
At
this point, is it essentially wrapped up then?
I think so. Top two, switch it off, go home. Top two position. Yeah. But then half the league can get relegated, so it'd be interesting. Everybody from Spurs downwards is looking over their shoulder. Yeah, it's great.
A little bit of a longer shot. So I mean, Man United second does seem like a pretty solid bet. Is Sanchez finished top scorer for this season? So he's on 7 goals so far. He's 80-1 with Dabblebet to finish top scorer. Yeah, he'd have to make up a 14 goal deficit. A flutter to score 14 goals on Kane's.
Well, I mean, Kane,
it's a long shot, I think.
Kane is going to, he's going to get a few more hat-tricks for sure.
You would imagine so, yeah. Even if Spurs aren't in the top form.
Well, who knows who's going to finish in the top 4. I fancy Arsenal. If they get Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, I'd fancy them to beat Liverpool and Spurs to that 4th place. They're all so inconsistent. Spurs, we saw Liverpool last night against Swansea, useless in that match they were.
Yeah, Liverpool correspondent Melissa Reddy said it was a very painful match.
Yeah, it was like the worst match she's watched this season.
Their performance was dire.
Yeah, dire. So, and Spurs drawn with Southampton, so they're all so inconsistent, those 3 teams. But I do think Arsenal will get this shot in the arm of the January transfer window, and these 2 players, if they get the 2 of them in, obviously Mkhitaryan's done.
Yeah.
It could carry them to 4th place.
Yeah, moving on to Chelsea, it seems like their silly season might finally be over. So they've been linked with all sorts of strange transfer targets: Peter Crouch, Andy Carroll, Barnes yesterday, Ashley Barnes for Burnley. But now it seems like they have wrapped up a deal for Emerson, Roma's left back, and they're very close, by the sounds of it, to wrapping up a deal for Dzeko.
That's right, yeah.
Which would be quite a signing, wouldn't it? I think everyone tends to agree that he is a quality player. He's a bit old. He's not a sort of young signing that they might usually go for. I think he's 31 off the top of my head.
He's 1986, so he'd be 32 this year.
Yeah. So, but do you reckon he'll be a good signing?
Absolutely. He's a high quality striker, and I said it yesterday. I know his time probably came at Man City, but I still think he could have done a job there for a team with genuine Premier League ambitions. He's a very intelligent player, brings the rest of the attack into the game, and he has that physical presence that Conte seems to want at the moment. But he's not just a big man. He's not like an Akinfenwa.
Yeah, or Peter Crouch.
He's not a big man. That's not his primary attribute. He just happens to be tall and strong. But he's a very, very accomplished footballer. I really like Dzeko, and I think he'll do really well for Chelsea. I fancy him to become their first choice striker as well over Morata. Yeah. I prefer him to Morata, and he's more proven in the Premier League than Morata is.
Yeah, I mean he's cup side in the Champions League, so if they bring him in, it's not like they can use him for European football. So it probably would be likely that they'll prioritise.
They're playing Barcelona anyway. They're going to get battered, so I wouldn't worry about that.
We'll see.
Yeah. But I do think, like I said, Nizar was saying that there's still a few T's to cross and I's to dot.
That's it. You got it right.
Yeah, I got it right.
Well done.
Yeah. But
it seems pretty close.
It seems pretty close, and then they get cover for Marcus Alonso as well.
Speaking of Nizar, we're going to cut to a little video of him now that he's prepared for us. So he's going to sum up January transfer window for Chelsea so far.
It's becoming a very interesting time for Chelsea. Edin Dzeko seems to be Chelsea's main target at the moment, and they're looking at a whole load of targets in this transfer window still. Strikers, there's been some funny names linked. Peter Crouch for one. Andy Carroll got injured, but he could have been the man who came to Chelsea in this transfer window. And finally, Ashley Barnes of Burnley has been the latest one. But Chelsea are casting a wide net, and it seems Dzeko is the main man who they want from Roma. And it's going to be a deal that includes Emerson Palmieri. He's a fullback, left wing back. Chelsea have wanted a left wing back for a while. It signals that they may be giving up on Alexandro, who the Juventus player who's had a great season last year. Chelsea really wanted him, but there seems to be competition from PSG now, and Juventus certainly don't want to sell him in January. So Emerson Palmieri will probably come in. I think that the transfer is going quite well. It's been smoother than you expect any transfer to go, so certainly promising signs coming out of that camp, and that could be a deal we see done very quickly. But Dzeko might be involved, so that might slow things down a little bit, and there's also the prospect of who leaves Chelsea. These two will probably be the only names, having already signed Ross Barkley, but who leaves Chelsea? It can still be Mkhi Batshuayi, and there's talk he could be included in this deal with Roma, but also Sevilla really, really want him, and Mkhi seems happy to go to Sevilla, where they're definitely going to make him the main man in a World Cup year. So he needs to get that spot, and playing second fiddle to Alvaro Morata's not really worked for him. Finally, Kennedy and Sonda could also go on loan. We'll probably expect them to. If Chelsea get all their targets, they'll let them go. If they don't, they'll stay. So that's it from Chelsea, really, and speak to you guys soon.
So that's what Naz had to say. Thanks very much, Naz, for sending that across to us. Seems like Chelsea fans have got plenty in store for the rest of the window to look forward to, potentially, with new signings coming in. We're going to move on now over to Man City, where our correspondent Sam Lee understands that they're pushing to sign Athletics' Henrikh Laporte and Shakhtar's Fred, which we spoke about yesterday. So before we talk a little bit about that, we're going to hop over to Sam to give his thoughts on the latest manoeuvres.
After missing out on Alexis Sanchez, Manchester City have changed their transfer plans for this month yet again. Up until last week, they were trying to bring in Alexis and Johnny Evans and strike a deal with Shakhtar Donetsk to bring in Fred at the end of the season. Now what they want to do is bring in Fred right now, and they also want to bring in Henrikh Laporte from Athletic Bilbao this month as well. It really is City trying to step up their plans, and that's pretty much as a result of missing out on some top targets in the last couple of years. Laporte himself was one of them, probably the first major one that got away of the Pep Guardiola era. Everything was agreed, he was about to sign back in 2016, but at the last minute he rang up Cheeky Begiristain, City's sporting director, and said he'd had a change of heart and was going to stay at Athletic Bilbao. That left Begiristain and Guardiola livid, and it pretty much meant, well, up until now, that they weren't ever going to consider him as a transfer target ever again. Last summer, City looked at maybe 5, 6, 7 maybe different centre-backs. They didn't get any in the end. They tried to get Virgil van Dijk again at the start of January. That didn't happen. Obviously, he decided to go to Liverpool. And now, after the Alexis snub, after Fabian Delph's injury, just after basically deciding that they need to be a bit smarter in the transfer window, they've gone back to Laporte. They're agreeing personal terms with him, and all they'd need to do, if Laporte agrees to come now, is pay a €65 million buyout clause to Athletic Bilbao. So that's one to keep an eye on. The other one is Fred. As I said, they were originally happy to let him stay in Ukraine until the end of the Premier League season, but now they want him to come as soon as possible. We understand that he's agreed to join, and now it's up to City and Shakhtar to negotiate how much he costs and when he'll come. Shakhtar want him to stay so he can contribute to the rest of their Champions League campaign. City obviously want him to come in now. Even though he'd be cup tied for the Champions League, it means he could play in the league, and that would leave Fernandinho fresh to play in Europe. The thinking behind the Fred deal is that in 1 to 2 years, he can replace Fernandinho at the back of midfield, and he can also play left back as well. So that is another one to keep an eye on. And as we say, City have changed their transfer plans yet again, and they want to bring in 2 major signings this month.
So City are back in for Laporte then, according to Sam. Shrewd move?
Yeah, I think so. They obviously didn't, as Sam explained, once bitten, twice shy when it comes to transfer targets, when it comes to cheeky Begiristain and Guardiola, but it seems that they've had a change of heart with Laporte, and he's right. When you want to talk about the targets that they've missed out on, once you stack them on top of each other, you realise that City haven't always had their own way in the market, no matter how much money they have. If you talk about Van Dijk, Dani Alves, Alexis Sanchez, Laporte once before, they've had to go right down their list sometimes to get their preferred player. So if they want somebody now, they're going to have to be sure about it and go and do it. And if that means going back in for Laporte and biting the bullet and admitting that you were wrong to write him off in the first place, then Guardiola and Begiristain are going to do it.
We were talking a bit yesterday about Johnny Evans and how he would essentially be a bit of a backup option, whereas Laporte, it's essentially a case where he is €65 million, which is around £57 million. That is more of a first.
Yeah, he would be coming in to probably to displace Otamendi eventually. Yeah, I would think so. Otamendi is a little bit more senior, and we know Guardiola likes to work with younger players all the time. So Laporte is he fits that model for Guardiola.
And Fred is the central midfield option. He's seen more as a successor to Fernandinho.
A long-term successor. Learn from Fernandinho for the next couple of seasons. Fernandinho obviously with that new contract. And he's been a great pro for Man City, and probably one of the most consistent performers under Guardiola since Guardiola's gone in there. He's done everything that Guardiola's asked for, so he would be ideal to teach Fred how to play that role in a Guardiola team.
We've got a little fake news segment now in the spirit of Donald Trump. So yesterday it was reported by The Sun that Mario Balotelli was set to join Juventus.
Yes.
We spoke to Romeo Agresti, our Juventus correspondent, and he said it was absolutely rubbish. I mean, essentially it's a case of getting 2 and 2 together and equaling 5.
Yeah, Balotelli's interesting because he's out of contract this summer. And at Nice he's probably had, I would say, the best 18 months of his career.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he's been on fire. He's scored more goals for Nice than he has for any other club that he's played for. And, obviously Mino Raiola being his agent is going to want to get him the best deal going. So, to his credit, Balotelli's got his head down, worked hard, and Nice have got everything they've expected from Balotelli, which is sort of to rehabilitate his career and make sure that he becomes sort of a landmark player for them. Time to move on now. He's at that stage of his career where he needs to find another big club. Will he go back to Italy? Romeo says that Juventus are not the right fit for Balotelli currently, based on his previous behaviours and whatnot. But the option to go to Inter might still be there if they end up losing Icardi. The option to come back to the Premier League might also still be there. But he's had sort of 7-8 years of ill discipline and inconsistency that people might look at and think, well, let's weigh up that against the fact that you've been a good boy for the last 18 months. But interesting where Balotelli goes in the summer. 18
goals in 24 games this season, but as you say, there's a lot of baggage there. A lot of Premier League baggage, a lot of Serie A baggage. It's a risk, isn't it, for any club to take him on?
Yeah, but ability-wise, he's got his head down over the last couple of years, and he's been great. And if I was a manager, if I was a sporting director, I might be tempted to take a punt on him for free.
We're going to finish now with a little segment on Deloitte Money League. So essentially, the 2016-17 rankings released overnight of who are the richest clubs in Europe. And surprise,
in terms of revenue.
In terms of revenue. And it turns out Manchester United are number 1 again. They're kings of Europe,
Number 10.
But they beat Real Madrid by £2 million. So it's a close call.
Yeah, because they won the Europa League. League. So people talking about how the Europa League doesn't matter, right? It got them back into the Champions League, and it's got them back to the top of the Money League. Okay, so the Europa League did matter for Man United last season.
They were right to prioritise it, weren't they?
They were right to prioritise it, absolutely, yeah. So they're number 1 on revenues.
Yes.
Real Madrid number 2.
Yeah. Barcelona
number 3. Bayern number 4.
It's Man City number 5.
Yeah.
And then we've got Arsenal 6, PSG 7th, Chelsea 8th, Liverpool 9th, Juve 10th.
Yeah.
So essentially all the Champions League contenders.
Everyone you'd expect.
And Arsenal,
really.
essentially. No surprises there. Are we reaching the point where the richest clubs in Europe are getting too high up from everybody else? I mean, you look at the other leagues. Do you think that's something that's happening?
The biggest players have always gone to the biggest clubs, and there's a few historical exceptions, but there's, if you want to talk about your Steaua Bucarests and your Honveds and teams who have historically done well in sort of smaller leagues, well, there's been caveats to that where they're either like a dictator's team or the army team or something like that. So it's always been the case that they want to go to the biggest clubs.
Yeah.
And it's no different now. Are we any closer to the Super League? I say yeah. I say we are pretty close to the Super League. Yeah, once these next television contracts are out to tender, Champions League, Premier League, for example, I think we could see a push towards it.
Yeah.
But it's not a case that the teams at the top of the Money League, Man United, they're not exactly dominating European football or indeed English football at the minute. So they're probably not punching their weight in terms of their revenues right now. So I don't know. I think it's sad to see what's happened to AC Milan. For the first time, AC Milan have fallen off.
Out of the top 20.
Yeah, they've fallen out of the top 20, and that's despite what they spent 150 more million on Shalanoglu, on Andre Silva, on Bonucci, and all these guys. 12 players they brought in last summer, and I'll be doing a piece on AC Milan a little bit later based on their performance in the Money League, and it looks like
it's not flattering.
It's not flattering. They're in a nice bit of trouble.
Trouble
coming down the line.
We're going to finish off with some user comments. Thanks to those of you who got involved today. We have one here from Deng Martin Deal who says Dzeko needs assurances of playing under Conte.
He'll play. He'll have those assurances. Don't worry. And that's why this deal is probably not wrapped up yet, because you're right. He will need those assurances. Am I going to be a starter? Am I going to be a replacement? But I think he's going to come in to start.
Theo says Chelsea should sign Aubameyang.
Theo Walcott.
Theo, he's got involved,
he's getting involved
trying
already.
to screw up Arsenal's plans. He's gone out the door, immediately coming in.
We said it all the time. I said it yesterday. I can't believe Arsenal are getting a free run at Aubameyang.
Yeah.
Can't believe it.
Yeah.
Such a good player that you expect him to go to a better club than them.
Arsenal fan Sad Islam has said Aubameyang, and I'll stop saying Wenger out.
Nobody will. Well, it's not going to happen.
Wenger out is a global phenomenon.
It's a global phenomenon.
It's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Frank Pivick says Mourinho hasn't got a classic defender he can rely on.
But it doesn't matter, because any central defenders that he puts in there end up playing well because he knows how to drill it back forward.
Yeah.
Smalling and Jones have been safe as houses these last 5 matches.
Just till he got injured.
5 clean sheets in a row in the league.
Yeah.
Rojo's been good. Bailly's been good.
Valencia Young even on the...
Lindelof, where's Lindelof? I forgot about him.
He's playing a little bit more recently.
Yeah.
So he hasn't
anyway,
just the bench one.
Smalling and Jones have been really good for them, so it doesn't matter. Look at Sean Dyche, for example.
Yeah.
He gets players in like Tarkovsky, Michael Keane, drills them into a back four, and they're worth 25-30 million. Mourinho's the same way. He knows how to drill it back forward. Doesn't need a superstar.
Alright, thanks Pete for joining me today. We're going to call it a wrap there. We'll be back again on Thursday morning with all the latest transfer news and gossip. See you then.